the great honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Yene Assegid here, who I've known for basically all my life, potentially, who has worked all over the place, from Sierra Leone to Ethiopia to China to Germany, has been working with many, many leaders as a transformational leadership coach, really about engaging with civilians and societies and transforming them. And I think I'll let her introduce herself and her line of work better, because you're clearly more eloquent than I am in that sense. So, yeah, please welcome Dr. Yene.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, everybody. I am so happy to be here. The toughest thing today has been to stop smiling. I have cramps in my cheeks. I'm so happy. Yes, yeah, it's really great to be here. Yes, I've known Brooke for all his life, not all my life, because yeah, so we can get right on it. I've been working with civil society for a long time. Just to give you a brief introduction, I went to business school. I have a banking and finance background, technically, because my family left Ethiopia when I was 8 years old, so we were sort of immigrated at the revolution. But as a proper immigrant family, you cannot study art or social stuff. It was finance, economics, law, or medicine, which can't. Me, I like numbers, so I did finance. But I didn't really like it. And so I finished early. I finished very early, actually, because I really wanted to get back to Africa to do work on the ground. And so I packed in as many classes as I could. And by 21, I was trying to go back to Ethiopia or somewhere to do work. And it took me almost 10 years to find my way there. It took a while to find my way there. In terms of the obstacles I was facing and the not understanding what is needed on the ground, not being understood. So when you come in as a young person, sometimes locally, people just say, oh, it's so great to have you back. And then you tell them your program or your vision. Then you just get a tap on the shoulder saying, so proud of you. And so, initially I just left everything, and whether they were agreed or not, I started working on the ground, and I started working in the red light district with women who are surviving from prostitution. My job there was trying to help them A, survive, B, protect themselves from HIV and AIDS, but without passing any judgment. It was not about saying, don't do that for work. My attitude was, if you want to do that for work, do it, but do it the right way. And if you don't want to do it, let's help you get out of it. I'm Ethiopian origin with a very conservative old-timer family, so you can imagine how delighted they were when I showed up with my condoms and all the devices that go along with it and onto the red light district. Yeah, but it was a great learning process. So this is stuff that you find that you can't learn in schools. And when we were planning this session, I thought, instead of me presenting anything, it's better if we have a conversation about it. So when you think of civil society, and this is a question to you, like, so what about it? Do you want to get involved? Do you just want to know about it? Is it theory? Is it practice? What do you want? What do you want? It's a question for you. I don't mean to be confrontational, but what are your questions? Like, what do you see as civil society? What is it for you? What does it mean? Is it at the, to have an advocacy organization? Is it to have an organization working on the ground? Do you want to establish an organization, start something, join something? What would make you happy? And what are your questions? Anybody, don't worry. You can just ask anything. It doesn't matter, because the more we talk and the more we ask questions, the better it is. And until you think of your questions, I'll share a couple of stories that have, go ahead, defined the way that I did things. So you raise money. For example, a lot goes about money. We talked a lot about technologies and finance and resources. One of the biggest challenges of civil society in Africa is that 100% of funding gets raised somewhere. And actually, for me, I saw it in my project, only 26% reached me in my project, because everything gets stopped for overhead at headquarters, overhead for this, budget allocation for the evaluators who come from somewhere who knows what. And then you just say, well, didn't we raise a lot more than that? Oh, yeah, but that's overhead. Now you have 26% of that. So you have to reduce your program to almost fit into that. And as a civil society working person, you're on the ground. You're facing the people that you're working with and the communities. They're not there. It's you in front of these people that you've made promises to. So, this is this was some of my biggest challenges. I'm not even going to go into the corruption situations because there is a lot of that, but that's a long story of its own. But if we put our conversation towards solutions, or towards things that are inspiring and that will give you energy, what would be these questions? What do you want to know so that you continue your interest to actually make something happen on the ground? Please.
So I worry a lot about. Oh, hi, my name is Kuko. I'm with the Africa Oxford Initiative.
No, so yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Okay.
Hi.
Okay, so I worry a lot about effectiveness and whose voices should be privileged and whose voices usually get privileged. Like things like how do you know that it's time to get out of a situation? And maybe it seems very abstract, but maybe let me give an example. Perhaps I'm from Ghana, so I want to have market women in Accra be more involved in decision making in parliament. I'm not a market woman, but I see the problems and I want to organize and help them organize and get their problems to parliamentarians. But then with all my studying and things, I know how it's problematic coming from a position of power, speaking over people's voices and things like that. So if you have any experiences in knowing when it's time to get out of a space, how do you know it'll be sustained? Or maybe sometimes I even think maybe thing doesn't need an intervention. It's none of your business. If it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great question. I put some points. I listed some points. If I could say, what does it mean to have a stronger civil society? So I was thinking about that, and that's what came up also as civil society actors. What do we need to be, and how do we need to show up? And a lot of time, we show up as if we know, and let me tell you how to do it. Come here and sit here, but yet what's needed is to just completely almost invisible and to surrender to the situation, to surrender to the unknown, to the not knowing, to being able to saying, I don't know, but let's think about it together. To have the courage to say, yeah, I did study, but they didn't cover that, so let's sit down and talk about it, We don't do that, it's unfortunate. So we don't listen. And no matter how wealthy or how unfinancially wealthy people are, they are still people, and God made us all intelligent. There's no dumb person on the planet. So when we sit down with people at the community level, and you can look at them in the eye, can you really look at them in the eye and say, I'm really here to help? Or are we there to help ourselves and our egos to feel better? A lot of time we slip into that, but we don't know it. It's subliminal, so you have to be careful that I'm not there to make myself feel good, that I'm actually there to serve. Subtle, but it's a huge shift. Because when you're there to serve, it's not about you anymore, so it doesn't even matter how you come. You're really there to listen. It's really to be able to make that shift of being in service to others and to a cause. Does that answer your question? A little bit? Yeah. Please.
I have a question. My name is my name is Wilfried, and I'm doing a DPhil in cancer biology. My question is more like, how would you encourage engagement into civic society or civic movement in countries where these are really repressed? Like, I come from Cameroon, and over the years, we've seen how many civil movements have been repressed and really repressed. So how do you engage people? Because now the population has moved into a state of, well, there's nothing we can change, so we might as well just lay by. So how do you engage how do you encourage
Others, you
engagement?
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
into that. Yeah.
I think we engage others by being engaged ourselves first. And I think passion is very contagious. If you're passionate and you dare and you have the courage, and you also have the courage to just be exactly who you are, that you're not trying to fit in an image, or you're not trying to fit in, you know how sometimes they want you to fit in whatever it is? So you just say, no, I'm going to express my willingness and my passion to serve. However it shows up, your opinions don't matter, but I'm going to do what's right to me. This is one way, because when people see that, they will follow that. They will see you and they will be encouraged to also do the same. When we accept ourselves just the way that we are, we give permission to others to accept themselves as they are too. When I come in with on my high horses, then obviously they're going to think they also need be on their high horses. I wanted to add something on that is we can't make anybody do anything. It really starts with me and inside me and my passion to do whatever it is. And our governments may have different reasons to suppress civil society, and we can't get into that right now. There's not enough time. But a distinction that has to be made is working in civil society and NGOs does not mean unprofessional. We have to be even more professional than the most professional profession that there could be. And there's what I see a lot is, I was in Freetown, we were in Freetown, and some volunteers came to work, and I'm not going to mention from where, but they came to work. They showed up in flip-flops, shorts, dirty feet. I'm going, what is that about? Sorry, hello? Like, I need you to be professional, because we're here to do professional work. Just because it's civil society, it does not mean that we can be half-baked. Our emails need to be proper, our communication needs to be proper, our thinking needs to be proper. Otherwise, we won't survive. And if we don't survive as civil society actors, we're not going to be able to push the change that we want, because we're going to not make it for the long run. It's also about deciding how much in the race do you want to be? Are you in for just in and out, and then you're going to change careers because this is just a stepping stone? Or are you in for the long run? If you're in for the long run, you know endurance runners, they run differently. We need to adjust. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Other two people have paved the way, so I can. I'm Mokhtar Kane, and I'm from Mali. So I have three questions. First one thing, I'm going to give a bit of background.
Yeah.
You probably have heard of the case of Mali.
Yes.
In 2012, where Mali was considered a beacon of democracy. Africa. Strong state and civil society dialogue with the civic engagement was considered stronger. I guess that's why it was named beacon of democracy in Africa. But in March 2012, democracy in the country collapsed. And the civil society not only did not denounce in a very strong manner the or the push the coup d'etat, but actually the grassroots people went out in the street in support of the coup d'etat. So what does it mean? Stronger. We have a strong civic engagement within system. If it's not of quality, is it good to be professional if it can't sustain a democracy?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a great question, but it's at the end of the day, it's the choices that we make. What is it that you want to leave behind, you as an individual, each of us as a person, as a woman, as a man? What is it what should you be remembered for? And this is the example that we have to put. Civil society is very, 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 very important. But sometimes we do it as a choice, like as an option. Often in my country, people say, oh my God, you got your NGO license? Good. Can I get a car through your license? Or you get funding and you hear comments like, oh great, now you can build your house. Because it's a way of making business. It has become business. And it's unfortunate because it's really unfortunate. There is no because. It's really unfortunate. And it's up to you guys also as the next generation to change that by you being the change yourself, and also by not ever accepting less than the best. Because at the end of the day, think of the children that have to be served, the communities, the men, the women, what has to be developed, the policies we need to put in place. You know, is it acceptable that, for example, in many African countries, forget the rights of homosexuality, it's even, there's laws against it. So are we going to stand up against that and have the courage to say and do something about it, do advocacy for that? Or are we going to say, well, you know, that my family's going to misunderstand that, let me just... It's like that because we're so close to our communities that we're afraid of, not afraid, but also we have social or family pressures of saying, get off that topic because you're not looking good on me. Different. Does it? Mokhtar, yeah, go.
Just 2 points on that. First is that when you mentioned about the again the manipulation, how people have kind of monetized the civil society thing, but actually the grassroots have also developed their own method of exploiting the exploiter.
Yes.
They've developed certain things where that's money we're not going to go to
Exactly.
meetings.
Yeah.
So in that case, how do you really ensure? Now it becomes kind of very confusing.
It's very simple for me. If you work with me on the ground, any organization, it's now shut down for other reasons, which I'll tell you later, but we had over 10,000 men and women that we were supporting. It was about HIV/AIDS, but what we did was leadership development and economic empowerment. When I give training or we organize trainings, I don't give a dime, not a dime. If you want to show up, you show up. If you don't want to show up, do not show up and do not waste my time. We have lunch, we have drinks, but why is it that when we go to funerals, parties, weddings, that we never ask for DSA? And because I'm giving you training that you couldn't even pay for, I'm supposed to give you money to come? No.
Unfortunately, that's about
everybody. I know, but more people, more organizations should do that. But you know why they don't do that? Because the donors not force us, but we're forced to do the trainings that we do or implement the whatever program we said we would implement, right? We can't do it unless they show up, right? So eventually, if they need...
My second question.
the third one.
And my third question is, so in that kind of environment, when you mentioned about, for instance, in the case of homosexuality, and you go, for instance, to Senegal, where when Obama visited Senegal, to President Macky Sall about changing the rules about homosexuality, President Macky Sall said, well, the Senegalese society, no matter how open-minded it was, society was not ready. That will cause him peace. In that case, when you ask for stronger civic engagement in that particular forum, is about domesticating or actually...
You can start with education. Education. Like, it doesn't make sense for you, I hope. Like, not every civil society movement has to be confrontational, but that us civil society actors are strategic enough to know when is it that you educate, when is it that you push an agenda. Yeah, please. Very good. Mokhtar, does it get your answers? Sorry? Okay.
I'm Carlos Campbell from Mozambique. I would like to share experience about challenges. Just before coming to Oxford, I was working for Oxfam, Novib, and Oxfam doesn't implement project; they implement through partners. And every time we went to the field, one of the things that I realized was first the receivers of our projects, the beneficiaries, they didn't understand the technicalities of our language. So it's completely different. And they don't understand it, but they do participate because there's money available. And most of the time, they take that money and they implement it somewhere else that matters for them. And the other thing is actually priorities. How do we define? And most of the time is something produced on top and imposed to them. And that they don't see that as their priorities. I can give a practical example, but the problem is that, the way we define what should be done and how it should be done, for example, poverty. How do we define poverty? It has been defined for so long as like income based, and now it changed. They say that it's multidimensional. I mean, it seems that we are reinventing something, calling people poor, but they have their own perception about poverty and how to live, how to deal with poverty. So sometimes projects, civil society, or they have money, they have concepts, which doesn't necessarily mean match with what is defined by the receivers. They don't have money, use the money, and they fulfill our projects. So thank you.
Yeah. Sure. François, I'm going to just quickly answer that, and then I agree with everything you said. I agree. I really agree, but it's up to us now to find that each individual civil society worker or person advocate has to be able to speak several languages. So are we speaking to show that we know all these acronyms and complicated words, or are we speaking to be understood? It's two different languages. And if we speak to be understood, then we're able to calibrate whatever it is, couch the message in a way that it reaches. And in terms of funding, also, there's a lot of money in NGO world and civil society. And in Africa, of course, now we're talking about financial poverty. So it's not so easy to say, oh, I'm going to start a volunteer organization, because our communities are already in poverty, and you're trying to create employment as well and a way to live. And one way to deal with that is to say, okay, yes, accept it, do it as such, but also deliver. There is no shame in creating a job through civil society. It doesn't mean that you have to be a martyr, but do it right. And it's for us now to show the right models, maybe changing from NGO to social enterprises, making our governments understand that. Our policies and our laws don't. I can't go to Ethiopia or any other country and say, well, I'm actually a social enterprise. I will do everything, so I need another tax situation. They don't. It's not in there. So that's also something that has to change. And another point on that is, in terms of funding, what's needed is the people who do work in the communities don't even have NGOs. There are grandmothers, there are grand aunts or old uncles who are really mobilizing, doing stuff with whatever it is that they have. Can we then create a funding mechanism that they can reach, maybe through mobile phones, maybe through making it easy to understand? Are donors also accessible? Or, how many times have you seen a proposal template and you're like, well, it's okay, I'll pass. I'm not going to do that project. So that needs to be worked up too. I'm going to take François, then I come to you.
Thank you. I want to talk about civic engagement and civility. You mentioned the word confrontational.
Yeah.
I'm wondering when the fracture between the youth and, assuming, the government, for example, very deep. How do you maintain civility in that case? How engage with a government that just doesn't listen? Considering that you do a lot of
You just have to be strategic, because getting angry doesn't get you anything. And a lot of times as civil society, we have an angry message, we have an angry stance, like we wake up angry. It's like, it's not even 8 a.m., we're already pissed off,
On the back of that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think sometimes, depending on the society, it's actually an effective thing to do. And the one example that comes to mind is Cameroon 2008 during the youth riots in February. That was because the price of some very basic commodities had gone up. And I really think that if people had not gone out to the street and burned stuff, the government wouldn't have listened.
Yeah, for sure. But as far as NGO workers and advocates are concerned, can you, even if you have an angry dialogue, can you be angry from here and calm inside? Like, are you really angry? To choose the language, to choose the way you communicate. You can communicate with somebody in a very authoritative, aggressive, or whatever confrontational way without actually being angry. If we manage to do that, I'm fine with that. But so many of us get really, really angry for real, and that's not good. That's not sustainable. Yes, please. Does that answer your question, François?
Hi, my name is Edwin. I work for the finance division here at the university. What would you say to boost my confidence area of finance? I know you mentioned it. It's about for every sort of pound that we give, 26%, 26p gets to the end.
In that particular, in that particular.
So, in terms of a sort of cost-benefit sort of approach towards it, because it costs to do good work, but in terms of the benefit of that minimal amount, what would you say to sort of boost my confidence in my giving? Next time I walk down the street and somebody stops me for this good cause that's happening in a remote area I've never been, probably never had.
I would say get involved, like to actually look at it and say, how much of the project money are you spending on overhead, and what percentage is actually going to the ground, to the project? If there's 15% overhead, it's more than enough. The last time we wrote proposals in Ethiopia a while back, it had to be even less than 10%. That's how they had it, the new policy. But if get on the website, ask for, if you're giving just like €5 or £10, don't worry about it. But if you're really going to help, I would say get involved, choose one or two organizations that you're going to champion, talk to them, see what they do, and then support them in a way that is sustainable and that makes a difference, that you mobilize your friends and you say, which project do you want me to support, and I can support this part of the project. And ask for reports. Like, it doesn't have to be a full-on report, but just say, how did it go? What else can I do? A conversation needs to happen between whoever is the donor and the recipient and the communities. We just need to have, we're in it together, but right now we're sitting on different fences. Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Julie. I'm a student here at Oxford, and I have a question in regards to what you said on professionalism. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what you think about the Stella Nyanzi Uganda. You say most civil society actors, not most, but we tend to be angry, and I wonder whether you feel like we should engage in a different way. Like, she came out talking about the president and using very vulgar language to pass on her message. Do you feel like we should have caps on how the civil society engages?
If we're angry, be angry. If we're angry, okay to be angry. You can't be angry and cap it and say, I'm not angry, I'm actually fine if you're angry. But it's more sustainable, we get more results if we harness this anger and change it to action. Anger is a lot of energy. So is it better to be angry and not create anything, but harness that energy and actually make it, laser it, so that you actually get change? Do you see what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about? So do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So get angry, fine, but for what? For what end? Know it. Be specific, be strategic. I know we can't choose when we're angry, actually, but it's having a habit of mindfulness, of that it's not a one-day thing. It happens over time, so that you're saying, I'm conscious every day. I'm aware every day, every moment. Be in touch with yourself so that you can choose how you communicate in what way to get what result for how long. Yeah, please.
Kani, student here. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on whether we are not starting too late to educate the young kids on civic engagement. I feel like it's starting at the end of high school, start to be aware of the problem of the community. Should we start to have civic engagement courses much younger? Like, make sure that at least when you're a kid, you can already identify some of the challenges in your community and already start thinking about ways to solve it instead of starting so late as a...
How many of our, Ministry of Educations would put in the resources to actually do that? Would be amazing. And in a way, this morning someone was it the High Life? They were showing the iPads that they had for the education. Something like that could get it started. This is where a young generation like yourselves could come in and develop something whereby it's not linked to the Ministry of Education, but there's other ways of engaging the youth in that way. The young people, the kids, that you say, it starts right at saying please and thank you, good morning and good night, greeting, not walking into a room and mixing like, it starts there. And also seeing people in a respectful way. I'm gonna need to bring the issue of women in this. Recently I started working with an organization that I had known of, but I had never really done work with them yet. And it's the African Women Development Fund. And it's a feminist organization, and I didn't really understand what they meant by that until I attended. It's huge, actually. And how many of us really in civil society respect women, stand for women, and in respecting women, also respect men. It's not about confrontation, it's not about having a gender war, but when we work together, if you look at NGOs, colleagues that work together sometimes, are not even respectful to each other. Yet we're supposed to go on the field and create something that is inspiring. How does that happen? For me, there's a discrepancy there. So the civic engagement has to include also the human approach to manners, ethics, respect for girls, for boys, for men, for women. It's basic, but it's not there, not as much as it should be. Yeah, yeah. Well, we go to the next question. Another point is when you say in the home, many of us our families are at home, we have people who work in our homes as guards or maids or cleaners or whatever. How much respect and how much is their rights respected? But yet we say we're NGO workers and maybe we have child workers in our homes. It's a holistic approach to saying, if I stand for civil society and changing the world in whichever way, in my little own way, then I have to start with me. Whatever I demand outside, that I'm able to deliver it.
Hi, I'm Tim Muyambi from Zimbabwe. I'll start by saying that work that you do, I'd like to focus on the NGO aspect of things. I'm interested to know on how much you think, especially in donor funding and the rest, how much that crowds out the private sector.
As corporate social responsibility or, yeah.
Or just private sectors getting involved in the UK, development money going to places, countries, and they're saying, well, actually, rather than give development, we should actually invest in private sector. Own rights, so in a sense, you can almost wean them alliance. It's interesting to understand the perspective of someone that works in the sector in terms of where you draw the line in terms of continuous reliance on getting given as to holding governments to account and actually agencies.
The way that I was thinking, I don't know how I want to answer this question, but it might not be feasible. But if we had no limits to resources, no limits to time, if we could have 3 days of such a conference, bring in people from the different communities, bring in government, and sit down and actually just chop it up, cut it up, and redo it, we could. And it would be the best way of doing it. It's up to us, really, to engage private sector. And it's up to us, NGO people, to say, I don't want you to give me any money. I want you to enable me to be able to sustain a school. I want you to help me get me started. But it's a mindset that has to change also among NGOs and say, don't look for funding. Look for ways to sustainably do something and that it generates its own money. In my country, it's illegal. You cannot generate business as an NGO. So that stops you right there.
Also a question, but also an opportunity to keep an eye on the time.
I have my timer.
Yes,
I'm good with time.
there's been a lot of changes since, but we have about 10 minutes. Well,
5.
40.
I have 5 minutes and 12 seconds.
Perfect. Now, I wanted to ask more about your experience in Sierra Leone with child soldiers and some of the challenges you face, and maybe speak more about your experiences, because I think there's a lot of value in those anecdotes that we can learn from.
Yeah. So thanks. So I lived in Freetown for 4 years. It was really great. It was the best time of my life and my family as well. One of the experiences I can share with you is that Sierra Leone is an amazing country. It's one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been in my life, and I've traveled a lot. So there's no way to come from the airport to town except by helicopter, or you take a speedboat, but then the big boat, that's worse. So the speedboat had, what was it? The helicopter. I left to go to Tanzania on one day, and then when I arrived in Tanzania, that helicopter had crashed. I don't know if you heard about a helicopter that crashed with the Togo soccer team a while back. So I was on the one right before. It was sad, and so it crashed. But when I returned, of course, there's no helicopter, so you have to come back by speedboat, which turned out bad. We ran out of big mess. Anyway, at the end, my bag ended up being stolen. So I went and I didn't really mind because I didn't think it was a big deal, and I knew who stole it. So I went to them, and these were former child soldiers who were just living on the beach. So next day I just went and said, okay, I know you have my bag, so sit over there. And when I'm done with my drink, then you give me my bag back and I'll buy you a drink. And they brought me my bag. I mean, long story short, but they're like, okay, you explain, and they bring it back. But then we started working together, and that was an opportunity to have a conversation, to say, what do you want? Are you going to spend your life in this way, or are you going to start working? And start working from where you are. Start working from where you are. And out of that experience, we ended up having one of them that started a small grill restaurant with small money that we raised. Another one started, thieves have to run, right? So one of the business ideas that we came up with, like charge for running. So a lot of people want to jog on the beach. I said, well, charge them per kilometer, and either as motivation or as security. So started that. That was great. There's no limit to what you can do with civil society. The limit is only your imagination. And the limit is only how you show up and say, I want to serve. How can I best serve you? Can I be a blank white page and let's create whatever you want? And it's not about me, it's about you. That's the best way to go about civil society. Yes. Yeah. Three questions, and then we'll wrap it up. My thing was going to ring in 1 minute and 40, but you keep it. Okay, I cancel. Okay.
Hi, I'm Vanessa for the Boeing Brain Foundation. And it's interesting because I could see the strengths of the civil societies during the Arab Spring. However, there is also a paradox now that the youth that was engaged in those civil society groups feels that the revolution has failed them. And I wonder, how do you actually keep the stamina or the strength of youth civil society groups when they feel like they fight for something, they actually engage, but they have no response by the leaders or by the country they are part of?
I think my question was leading
Got
on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Just leading on that, basically, when you mentioned that there's no limitation on what you can do with the civil society, is that very limitation a problem, given the fact that civil society can be used as a tool by foreign state to interfere in domestic policies of other countries?
Last question there, and then I'll take all of them together.
Dying to ask this one. When you stopped giving them the money, what happened? You mentioned that in your
no, it kept going. On the beach, the running team.
No. Before, like when we were talking about
they still came. They even after the NGO closed, they still kept going to the different things we organized.
Excellent. And
so sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to tack on with someone asked something about anger and engagement. I just wanted to briefly say that sometimes it's important to have like the organization that's always angry, an organization working in the same field but working with also the angry people who are known as the calm ones. When the angry people go and annoy the government and scare them up, and then they come and sit with the people who are known as calm, and in the end,
You can use anger strategic. It's exactly that. Like, be angry strategically. Don't angry is. Be strategic about it. If you're going to be angry, target it right, because it's very powerful. It's a lot of energy. So target that anger so that you get what you want. Don't just be angry and like lose space. But to come back to your question, for me to keep people, to continue to help people remain continuously engaged, I step back of it and just ask for constant mindfulness. Like, you don't change something when you've reached there and you realize, oh, it changed. If you remain mindful at every step, you're mindful. So you're mindful if you're off track and you come back on track. So don't wait until it's, 10 steps later that it's already gone like this way. And to you too, this is what I really want to leave you with is, please be mindful every day. What do you do? What are you thinking? Where are your thoughts going? Keep in mind that your thoughts will define your reality. So, are you remaining with thoughts that inspire you and give you strength and give you power? And are you mindful enough to use that power in the right way? Because when we get distracted with all the things that are happening, Emian falls to music, or it's like that you're grounded and you're focused and you're clear about your path and you go there. That's the only thing I would tell you about youth engagement and about our own engagement. We keep going. Brooke, on time.